We are here with my lovely friend, Jacqueline McGill, who has been the most wonderful coach for both children and adults that I've known. And we're going to dig into what it means to be coaching children. So, this is halfway through the World Tutors Day Live on LinkedIn program. And what we've done so far is we've been speaking about business leadership. We've been speaking about different ways to build tutoring businesses that you can really be proud of. And Jacqueline has one of these stories as well. As a former teacher, you left the classroom, you built yourself up as a coach for children, and that journey becomes really interesting when we as listeners think about what that means to us in our own lives and how we can take the work that you've done and the journey that you've taken and all of that introspection and then skilling up and what that means to each one of us on our own paths. As you know, one of the most wonderful thing about tutoring is how adaptable it is, not just for the children, but also for the adults. Each one of us invents ourselves in our own ways, in ways that are much more closely aligned to who we are as people than we can do in the classroom. And that's what becomes really enabling and exciting and gives us this sense that we can really love tutoring. So with that introduction, let's have a nice, long, easy amble through your journey. So if you could start off by telling us a little bit about that journey, and then we'll go from there.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction, Julia. Just to clarify, I'm actually super greedy. I haven't actually left the classroom. I do everything. So I do still teach, not full time, because as I say, I was looking for that balance. But you're right, I have been a teacher for 24 years. And although I'm turning up on my by myself today, I am not a solo gig. I'm actually, you have to imagine that my twin sister Lorna is here as well, because we are as one. So our journey began a long time ago. We had both really struggled at primary school and secondary school, not being diagnosed with dyslexia until we were much older. And looking back, that makes a lot of sense. But my passion for finding school myself challenging was what really fueled me to want to become a teacher. I wanted to be the adult that I really needed in my life. So my passion right from the beginning, from when I trained to be a teacher, was in special educational needs, how to support students who were struggling, and for many years, I merrily, happily plodded along in my classroom. I worked in England and Scotland, and Lorna's pathway was in occupational therapy for children. So with that, like really exploring, like if you think of the occupation of a child as to play, it's like from babies to 18-year-olds. How can we get them functioning, independent, those sort of skills? And then I would say probably, and we've always kind of picked each other's brains over, different challenges, opportunities, ways to best support children. Um, but probably a good 10 years ago, we both noticed that the things that we had been doing weren't really having the impact that they used to. So it wasn't even, getting children to the learning or the therapy. It was the bits that you needed to do beforehand to kind of like build them up. They had lost confidence, lost compassion to themselves, really. Everything felt very hard and tricky. So we both experienced coaching as adults. And what was fascinating to me was just that wealth of wisdom that sat inside of you, sort of untapped. And until like the coach helped bring it out of you, you just didn't know it was there. You actually had so many of the answers that you needed to your problems and challenges already sitting inside of you. Your subconscious kind of knew it. But also that subconscious brain was maybe the thing that was keeping you back from doing it. You might have a belief that you're not able or whatever. So there was that aspect going on as well. We've both experienced the coaching, and we both kind of said to each other, wouldn't it be amazing to have known this when you're 8 instead of like 38? So that's where that kind of started. And likewise, having conversations with parents in the parents' evening, the number of times a parent would say to me if I was describing a challenge their child was having was, "Oh my goodness, you're describing me when I was at school," or Oh, I'm not the maths person. You'll need to wait till like mum or dad comes back, or oh, I'm not the reader, I'm not the speller, I'm not the athletic one, I'm not the artist. There's all these things that you are not. And I just thought it's so sad because we've just kind of written off like that whole part of ourselves, thinking, oh, that's not for me, because at some point we have got the impression that that isn't for us. Um, that I always say children are great observers, but poor interpreters. So no adult ever, I don't think, has gone out of their way to decide that they're going to set a limiting belief for a child. You know, how will I make sure that this child never feels that they're able to do maths? I know I'll make a I'll make a comment or raise my eyebrow or give them a disapproving look. But they're just living their best lives. If you think of child development, up to that age of 7, children think they're the best at everything. They're the best ballerina, they're the best gymnast, they're the best, best, best. And then that little moment happens when that little chink where they think, oh, wait a minute, maybe I wasn't the best at that. And at that moment, they can either believe that, oh, it's just not for me, or they can think, oh, I just need to work a bit at this. I can still be successful, but I'm going to have to put a bit of effort in. Um, so we kind of like took all that sort of understanding of what was going on with child development, the way we can set ourselves up for failure. Also, just the landscape of childhood has sort of shifted a little bit. There was a lot more pressure. I know social media gets all the kind of like bad vibes, but look at us today. If it wasn't for social media, we couldn't be connecting. So there's lots of positives. But I think the being analysed so closely under a lens in that, with people sort of knowing your business and being able to share things far and wide is lovely, but it's when it's things that you maybe don't want shared, or you have too much access to comparisons, like what other people are doing, and then you start thinking, oh, I'm not enough. That can be quite damaging. So Laura and I were kind of thinking, well, we really want to support families, we really want to support children, we want to support the key adults around children as well, which is another element of what we do. But we know that when people speak about mental health, they speak about it in a negative way. It's always talked about when it's like poor mental health. You don't celebrate and say, wow, did you see so and so in the staff room today? Like their mental health was like out of this world. They were so joyful. We don't tend to notice or celebrate that. We notice when people have gone quiet, when they're tearful, when they're very angry, when their emotions are out of balance, when they're just not okay. And then the sort of degrees of that. And I certainly felt in the classroom and speaking with parents, that there's that sort of wait and see approach where, has it got bad enough? Is this sort of like, I don't know what we're all waiting for, but you're kind of like that watch and wait, watch and wait. And we kind of liken that to like a lighthouse effect. You're always just scanning and checking and just keeping that eye on that particular child, maybe from one parent's evening to another. That let's wait and see what happens. And or no, I don't want you to do anything just yet. That's not that bad. I just didn't, I didn't know if I should mention it or not, and so on. But the way we see it is that we all have mental health 100% of the time. And if we just keep waiting till things go sort of negatively, we're not really doing children or adults any favors, because anything could happen to anyone at any point. And we liken it to physical health. So, you could be training for a marathon, you could be very, very fit, you could have a great, running schedule, eating schedule, and then you fall and sprain your ankle. So that your physical health has taken a slight detour, but it doesn't mean that you don't have physical health. It's just maybe doesn't look or feel the same as it did previously. So we were thinking for children, when they are asked to support their physical health, they've got lots of really good messages out there. Drink more water. They think of in school. They have drink breaks. They run the daily mile. There's health weeks where a lot of the physicality of health is celebrated and promoted. And we were thinking, well, what about the mental health. You know, if we said to parents, would you like to support your child mental health, there's sort of that feeling of like, oh, I don't really know if it's me. Or when I've spoken with teachers, they've said, oh, I don't want to make it worse. And this feeling like we could sort of really negatively impact a child, and it's better just to have a hands-off approach. So when we started thinking how best we would support children, we thought we really need something that's like a gateway that doesn't feel stigmatizing, it doesn't feel different, and it just feels really kind of like to normalize mental health. Or we like to think of it as mental strength, because you can get infinitely stronger. You don't have to think at one point that you've reached. You can always become more resilient, more confident, more compassionate to yourself, have more self-efficacy, more self-esteem. So that's why we've started on storybooks, because books are known to be read with children. It doesn't feel weird or too woo-woo. And lots of people, oh, you've got the box. Julia got hold of the box. So that's full of all the books and resources in there that we've written so far. Yeah, so Why's My Size started. And the first book we wrote was called The Worry. And because most children and adults will have a worry in their life, and it's nothing to be alarmed about. Worry is perfectly normal. And so what we do is we more welcome the worry in. We want to find out why it's turned up, why it's there, and there it is, and what it can teach us. Because actually, once we get to know our worries and actually listen to our little inner voice, it's usually got some really good ideas. And it could be that some things are just needing to be practiced a little bit more, or yeah, meeting our worry. And we draw and write about our worry. We make our worries out of junk modeling or clay or whatever, plasticine, and then Lego even, and then we get to know them and talk to them. And that way, when we befriend it, we're not so scared of it. And it is that kind of, fear of the unknown, or fear of judgment of others, or we just don't believe in our own abilities. Or it could be a one that popped up a lot during the pandemic was an out of my control worry, where we just actually can't control the things that are out with ourselves. We can control our own thoughts, feelings, emotions, actions, but we can't do that for other people or world events. So that's how it all began. And we're up to 9 books in the library so far, with the resources, and we now train other people to become Wise My Size coaches.
That's
So that's
exactly where I wanted you to take us next.
oh,
So
perfect.
well, let me just give you
That, Julia.
let me just give you my personal endorsement. So my kids have been through these resources. You've supported my kids, and Lorna supported me. And I think that's really, really important, because firstly, it's important for us all to be honest about asking for help, and to
Yes.
model that asking for help. And you do it. You've spoken about the help that you've accessed, and I think that's the best way to normalize focusing on mental health, and getting the support we need. But I also think that what you've built here as an educational resource sits very comfortably within the PSHE curriculum. It's really intentional, and it's really helpful, because there's a sort of, again, destigmatizing that goes into the fact that, quite simply, the book already exists. So clearly I'm not the only person feeling this, right? Each one of your topics is something that is very, very normal. So one of my kids had an issue, and you found the book that spoke to that issue. And there's something very reassuring about the fact that the book was always already there. You use that lovely phrase in that book about mistakes, different types of mistakes. Yes. So I'm gonna just give you a little bit of Jacqueline here. So
All right.
you speak about the mistakes that are, I had a go, it didn't go well, I'm gonna have another go. And those are learning mistakes. I think you call them marvelous
we
mistakes.
we do call them marvelous mistakes. Well done,
And
Julia.
then the other type of mistake is a lost your way mistake. And when you talk to a 12-year-old boy about losing their way, it's really, really powerful. And the gentleness in your language of, you lost your way, there's nothing wrong with you, it doesn't say anything about you, it just says you need to find your
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. So
Go
when
ahead.
when we have our lost our way mistakes, and we all do this all the time, we talk about values, and that's like what kind of is important to us. We spend our time, money, and energy on our values, so they are running our behavior. So we might really value fun and adventure, and that's why it might feel really good fun at the time to maybe play a prank on someone, or to maybe shout something out in class and be a bit cheeky, because at the time you are meeting your value of fun and adventure. But sometimes we don't think beyond the end of our noses. And we do something, we act in a way, we say something, and afterwards you might think, oh, that feels a bit uncomfortable now. And the thing is, you've maybe gone against another value that you hold dear, which is perhaps kindness or friendship, loyalty, politeness. And that's when you get those kind of uncomfortable feelings where you think, oh, something doesn't feel right now. And it's okay to say, I just made a bad judgment, or I made a mistake in saying that to you. And you can always, I will say, like, your behavior got you into it, so your behavior can get you back out. So there's always something you can do. But the part that children and adults don't often do is, once you've actually apologized, you've acknowledged what you've done, you've admitted it, you've made if you needed to apologize to a person, or made it up to them in some way, then you've done all that. But it's the last two steps are forgiving yourself, which is the hard bit. But it's just actually knowing that you're just a little human being. You are going to make mistakes. I always think of kids as having like their L plates on. We're just driving around. Sometimes we do it wrong. But the last step is actually learning from it, because that's where, if you don't actually connect to the emotions of a lost your way mistake, that's when you repeat behavior. So say it was a tutoring session, and a child has repeatedly not completed homework tasks, or they've said they're going to do something and they repeatedly don't do it. I would always be curious to look at, what is it that's fueling, what is the value that's fueling that behavior, because it might be in the moment something else has got a bigger pull, that is, that is what's making them behave and repeat in this way, and it's actually connecting to the emotion of why doing the homework or not doing the homework is important, or why asking for help is key to making progress. So that's where we always have that kind of curious approach. Um, what's done is done. So it's like, now the great opportunity is to be able to learn from it.
So I love what just happened there, because I opened one little drop of your resources and off you went expanding it for us. And I think that's exactly what I hoped to create here, with that sense of the richness of the thinking behind it, and how much there is to explore in the work that you and Lorna are doing. But I'm really curious to know about the difference between coaching adults and coaching children. Is there a difference?
Hmm. In one respect, I would say coaching children is slightly easier, because they don't have the deep-rooted limiting beliefs that are ingrained into adults. If you think, most of our beliefs about ourselves, the majority of them are baked into us by the age of about 7 or 8. And when I'm saying beliefs, it could be they might not even be a belief that belongs to you. It could be a generational belief. It could be a societal belief. It's just that as you're growing up, there are messages being fed into you all the time, through conversations being had at home, conversations with friends, maybe, like, as I say, like observations that you've made, and then you've made a decision, oh, that's what that means. So although maybe an adult says, oh, don't worry if you didn't get whatever mark in a test, your face or your tone of voice says something very different to that child, where it's like, it does matter. Oh, the only way to get the love is to do well. Or you tried really hard at something, and maybe you didn't come first, or I'm just thinking, like, in a learning environment. I quite often see children suddenly switch when it comes to maths, just because there's that right or wrong element of it. Whereas if we go back to our marvelous mistakes, you were just learning. It is highly likely, when you're learning something new, that you will not get it right. And if we actually just start with that belief, what difference would that make? So, in terms of adults and children, the resources that we have created are just really good tools for anyone. We've just made them not childish, but being able to be understood by younger children. But we have a number of coaches who are Wise My Size coaches who also coach adults, and they have merrily dipped into their Wise My Size toolbox, because sometimes just seeing, again, think of the way we all learn. Sometimes just seeing a visual or actually embodying a feeling. So a lot of what we do is we play games so that children feel and understand what we're talking about. For example, in growing your comfort zone, there's no point me just saying to you, oh, by the way, you've got a comfort zone and it's just imaginary. It's everything is in there of what you think you're capable of. It's not really true, but it's just what you've decided. Where we play the comfort zone game. And in that respect, you can actually feel just by thinking of an event or doing something, oh, would I feel comfortable doing that or not? So you understand where the edges of your comfort zone are. And it's also the talk that goes along with it, because you might have some, or like, I could do that if, or, well, that would be all right, but I'd have to have XYZ happening to allow me to do that. So there's that kind of element to it. So in terms of the coaching, if your question is it different from adults to children? Um, Not particularly. The challenges and opportunities might be a little bit different, but in essence, the coach helps you deal with now and the future. That's really what coaching is. It's looking at the now and looking at the future. So coaching's super helpful if you've got like a challenge or an opportunity coming up, and you want to find a way to navigate around it. And that could be for family, it could be for a child, it could be like an academic whatever that you're trying to do. So we've just had exam season, so for a lot of children, actually having the a pathway for themselves to deal with exams is super important, and they can actually feel very um vulnerable and victim thinking, like all these things are being done to them. And it's really about changing that mindset to think like how powerful you are in your own life and how you can make progress regardless of what's going on around you.
This is what occurs to me from what you're sharing there, is that you used the word play earlier.
Hmm.
And it's almost that, on the one hand, you've got those limiting beliefs that are so entrenched with adults and less entrenched with children. And on the other hand, you've got that proximity to play, that readiness to play, and that children sort of drop into that space more naturally. And that we as adults need to get to that point where we can drop into play as well. And that's sort of somehow associated with health and mental health. That's what resonates with me. Does that sound right to you?
Very much so. I think I was at a conference actually a few months ago, and it was somebody asked the questions like, when did you stop dancing? When did you stop singing? When did you stop drawing? When did you, it's those kind of questions like, oh yeah, when did I stop doing that? Because I think like when you do stop doing those things, that's when life can feel harder. And you're absolutely right. Like children will just naturally, if we said, "Oh, let's play a game," they'd be like, "Yes, okay." Whereas if I said that to a group of adults, there might be a level of suspicion, of self-consciousness, of oh, dread. What's she going to make me do? I think we've all been in those situations when there's the dreaded icebreaker has come along, and it just makes me feel uncomfortable. But once you've got over that initial, oh, I don't want to, again, out your comfort zone, um, you usually can find some sort of joy in it, even if it's just finding a kindred spirit who's like, oh, I can't believe we're having to do this. But you do make that connection, and I think the more playing that we can do, the better. And that's what's lovely when we do family coaching. Although we're coaching the child, the parents are included, and they get to join in. They get to draw their worry or make their worry or whatever else, make their shade and shine top characters as well, because we all have it's not just for the child, it's for all of us.
I think that's so helpful. And it's definitely the way the conversation is developing for the rest of World Tutors Day is shifting from focusing on the tutor to focusing on the family, and
Mm,
the tutor's relationship with the family, the child, the supporting adults, siblings, even, and all of those relationships that sort of are each affecting each other. Um,
mm,
there's so much that you've touched on here that I would love to explore further. And I hope you don't mind my sharing that for me, this feels like play. For me,
mm.
these conversations live on LinkedIn have felt so um, creative in the best of ways, exploratory and open. And I think that one of the things that we need to let go of is this idea of best and competition. And I don't need to be the best dancer, I need to enjoy dancing.
Exactly. Exactly. If you think of like a little my children are older, but they when they went to dance shows, like the most joyful dances were often the ones where it was little tiny tots, and they were just enjoying being on the stage and being in the spotlight and running around and finding somebody in the audience to wave at, rather than maybe if they were a little bit older and there's that feeling if I can't make a mistake, I can't get it wrong. And yeah, I think having fun is very important. So that's actually one of our values is the fun factor. So regardless of what we create, it has to pass through the fun factor, and it's not our fun factor. And we also one of our values is tried and tested. So we work before we produce anything to go out into the big bad world. We've worked it through with children, and as you know, children are brutally honest, which is great. And if they don't like something or if they think that doesn't work, then they let us know. Even to the point where they've helped direct what the illustrations will be for the book. So when we write them, we always work through the sessions with the story with the children and actually say like what pictures would have really helped to tell the story here for you. And they actually start giving us ideas of what it's going to be. Um, and they're delighted when they see it and they're like, oh, you used my idea. I was like, of
Oh,
course I
you
used your
heard
idea.
me. Isn't that
Yeah,
lovely?
because it's like you need to know, like your ideas are important. So yeah, my little Wise My Size crew, they've been it's vital in growing Wise My Size as a business. We couldn't have done it without them.
So
So
that's exactly where I wanted to finish up. You keep doing that to me.
yeah.
So let's say I'm a teacher who's exiting the classroom or building up my tutoring experience, and you've done a lot of work with tutors in the last couple of months because we've run supervision circles together. So you know what the feeling is sitting behind there. In 2 minutes, how could somebody make use of your resources, your training program to get involved, skill up, and coach kids, learn to coach kids?
Okay, so just as
I've
like I
got your
kind of said
thinking.
at the beginning, yeah. As I said at the beginning, I do coach children, for the rest of the week, and also I kind of call myself like a curriculum coach because I've got my teaching background. And quite often, if a child comes and they have that challenge around an academic area, like where they're feeling that they can't, that they're stuck, I use the Wise My Size resources to help unstick that. Because although they might be saying, "Oh, it's the fractions are the problem," it's a lot bigger than that. So what the tools give you is the framework to navigate. So I've worked with children who, although it's come for an academic purpose, it's actually like a hold me back belief, or there's what I would call shade talk. We're trying to brighten that up into their shine talk. It could be that they're victim thinking. They've got their reticular activating system, their RAS set to onto victim, that the whole world's against them and the whole system of schools against them. And actually, it's very hard to do any good curriculum work within that framework. So the tools help you kind of break down those beliefs. It's not saying that they're wrong. It's saying I hear you and I see you where you are. And would you like to live over here? Or would you like to work together and we could maybe live over here where can feel a little bit easier? So the way that someone could get in touch is just by contacting hello@wisemysize.com, and we would invite them to an information session or a discovery call with myself or Lorna. And the next cohort starts in October.
That's amazing. Great timing. I wonder whether there could be a special offer for QT members for World Tutors Day. Um, Jack, you're the real deal. And I appreciate you
Oh, thank
so,
you.
so much. And I think that giving this lunchtime hour to this important conversation around mental health, well-being, and really sort of lifting the feeling has been exactly what I felt we needed. The tutoring profession has been through the ringer this year. There's been a lot of
Mm.
changes, and you've seen it, haven't you, firsthand? there's been some real ups and downs, and the ebbs and flows feel very, very pointed in June, July, because work is slowing down. But it's a time for us to nurture ourselves, and it's a time for
Absolutely.
skilling up to be able to nurture our students in the future. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your
Thank
care,
you so much for having me.
and happy World Tutors Day. I will be back here at 2 o'clock to speak with our next special guest, who is the awesome Emma Harper from Core Plus Tuition. And she and I, Jack, will be talking about honest relationships between parents and tutors, because honesty and trust is always at the bedrock of everything we do.
Absolutely.
Thanks again
Emma's
for your time.
amazing.
Happy World
Thank you,
Tutors
Julia.
Day. Bye, love.
Bye. Bye.